Welcome into another off-season edition of Daily Face-Off Live. Happy Monday, everybody. We're streaming live on the Daily Face-Off YouTube, where you can leave us a question for hashtag AskDFO. We are, as always, brought to you by Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. I'm Tyler Yaremchuk. He is managing editor and senior writer at Daily Face-Off, Matt Larkin. Matt, how was your weekend?
It was wild. It was one of those check the phone every 2 seconds because there's something happening. There's a rumor, there's a trade, there's a re-signing. It's been crazy, Tyler.
I will say, especially on the trade front, though, more rumors than actual trades. Like, aside from the big Dobson splash, I guess you throw Gibson in there as well. That's kind of it
For now, but who knows? There could be something breaking while we're doing this show. We have eyes, of course, on the Vegas Golden Knights and Toronto Maple Leafs. Something could happen today. It hasn't happened officially, but you know it's out there. It's on everybody's mind.
We're going to talk Mitch Marner in a little bit. We're also going to be joined by Matt Barnaby for our big segment today. He's going to be a part of our free agent special tomorrow. We'll pick his brain on the free agent market ahead of July 1st. But let's start the show by going all the way back to draft night. It was the NHL's decentralized draft. I'll ask you about that in the rating game. But first, Matthew Schaefer. Here's his name called at first overall, the expected move. First off, a couple of great touches by the Islanders. Matt Schaefer lost his mom to cancer when he was younger. They put the cancer ribbon on his jersey. You see him and his dad getting emotional there as well. Man, I mean, it was hard to keep your eyes dry looking at Matthew Schaefer coming up on stage. It was a great moment, Matt.
It really was. And for all the heat the draft took on Friday, it did start on a high point. It was very emotional. And anyone you hear talking about Matt Schaefer, of course, yes, he's the best prospect in the draft. Tremendous potential as an all-around horse defenseman, but also his character. This seems like someone who's going to be a future captain. He's just beloved in terms of any scout, any interview he was given leading up to the draft. People love this kid. And he really has had a tough road. His mom, he also lost his billet mom. Only 3 months. I think it was 3 months before or 3 months after, but it was 3 months apart. He lost billet mom and, of course, his actual mom. So he's been through so much for a kid who's not even 18 years old yet. And I think the character he's shown bodes really well for his NHL future.
So we obviously saw the Islanders move on from Noah Dobson earlier on draft day, and they get a couple of first-round picks back. I like the deal, actually, for kind of both sides here. Montreal had picks to burn. They don't really need to put more in the cupboards. They need to get better now. And for the Islanders, you got to pick 16th and 17th overall. There was all the smoke that they're trying to move up to get James Hagens, and they wanted the Schaefer-Hagens duo. It obviously doesn't end up coming to fruition, but I saw, Brian, I think it was, Brian put in our chat, he liked the value of holding back and getting Eklund and Atchison as well. I like the work from the Islanders, and now it's a question for Matthew Darche of, is he going to keep this sell-off going a little bit, or is he just going to stand pat for a while? I think there's a lot of people, myself, I think it'd be smart business to go and move off on a few more pieces here and just bite the bullet for the next 2 seasons.
Yeah, I think so too, but it's still in question whether that's going to be the strategy, because Matthew Darche did talk on Friday night. I was in that Zoom, and he was quick to refute the idea of a rebuild. We'll see how true that really is once we start seeing the results on the ice this season, because again, you've removed Noah Dobson, your number one defenseman who plays 25 minutes a night, from the equation. So he may not have a choice but to be a rebuilder. But for now, I think what he's trying to say, if we read between the lines, I don't think we're seeing a Matt Barzal trade this summer or a Bo Horvat trade this summer, right? So this may be it for now in terms of big splashes. But overall, I still think the Islanders are taking a big step in the right direction. It did start with Lamoriello trading Brock Nelson to bring in Cal Ritchie. That was sort of the signifier of, okay, this denial phase is over. We finally accept that we are going to get worse to get better in the long term. So I really like the haul they got. Yes, Matthew Darche did say they were trying to get James Hagens. He admitted it on Friday night. They couldn't do it. But if you look at Stephen Ellis's draft rankings on Daily Faceoff, we had Victor Eklund 9 and Kayshawn Aitchison was 10. So the Islanders got 3 of our top 10 prospects on Friday night. And you have to call that an amazing haul. I think they've really changed the trajectory of the franchise. Also, Cole Eiserman, who they got last year, to build around. You have a core now, one of the better young cores in the league if you're looking at the long-term future of the New York Islanders.
Yeah, and it's a core and it has a direction now, which I think is what a lot of Islanders fans have been clamoring for the last number of seasons. No more just aimlessly running it back with a mid group of veterans. It's like, no, we're gonna bring some youth and excitement into this and do things the right way. Try to become a legit Stanley Cup contender and not just a playoff contender, if you will. Let's get to a couple of other storylines from the week and let's play the rating game, Matt. I will throw a take your way, and you're gonna give it a rating on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being Tyler, you are bang on. That is the smartest thing I've ever heard. 1 being shut up. That's horrible. Let's start with this. The NHL's first decentralized draft should absolutely be their last, clocking it at north of 4.5 hours. Matt, 1 through 10, do you think it should be the last time we see the draft in that format?
Can I break the scale and just say 11? I think it was an absolute debacle. It was one of those things that was so bad that it eventually became funny. I had so much secondhand embarrassment that I was turning red while watching it. My wife went to a movie, came back, drove home from the movie, and it was pick 12. Come on. It was an absolute disaster. And I think in a way it did the NHL a favor. Yes, I know the vote was 26-6. So Gary Bettman was quick to make sure that it was clear it was the manager's idea. But I don't think that vote's going to be 26-6 if they do it again. I think it's a one and done. And that take is bang on, my friend.
Do you buy into the conspiracy theory a little bit that might have been the league trying to embarrass the managers a little bit, being like, oh, you guys wanted this? Get ready because it's going to suck.
Yeah, I've heard that's out there. I think it almost makes sense, but it was so embarrassing that even for Gary Bettman, I don't think it was worth taking a dive. So I think it went so far that it actually dispels the conspiracy theory.
That is probably the right way to view it. One thing that happened this weekend that wasn't a trade and it wasn't free agency or whatever, Jim Nill was presented with the GM of the Year award for a third consecutive season. That is absolutely insane. To win any major award a third consecutive time is wild. But I'm going to sit here and say that Jim Nill wasn't even a top 5 GM this year. I mean, the Matt Dumba thing did not work. Ilya Lyubushkin is dead money on the books. Granlund and Ceci was fine. I guess he acquired Mikko Rantanen, but it's not like he got him for a prayer. He gave up Logan Stankoven. I felt like Bill Zito had a much better season than him. I felt like I could list a couple of other GMs who did really good work this year, and they just kind of gave it to Jim Nill once again because it was the easy move. Jim Nill, an undeserving GM of the Year award winner. 1 through 10 on that one, Matt.
I'm going to slap you with a 3 on this one, Tyler. I think you have to put into context when the vote happens on this award. It happens after the second round of the playoffs. The Florida Panthers had just squeaked through in a 7-game series. Mikko Rantanen was a man on fire. The Dallas Stars had made the conference final. Jim Nill wins it 3 years in a row because Dallas is in the conference final every year. And I think to me, it highlights that it's dumb to have an award that's voted on midway through the playoffs. Is it a regular season award? Is it a playoff award? You can't really decide. If it's a playoff award, then just give it after the Stanley Cup final and give it to the GM of the cup winning team every year. That's also kind of pointless. Then the Stanley Cup itself is the award. So to me, you're opening up a can of worms. And I think that is the question. Does this award even make sense? I don't blame Jim Nill for winning it because you have to look at where Dallas was perception-wise halfway through the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, Rantanen at that point was looking like he was on a historic run and all of that. So it is fair. The timing of the vote definitely plays a factor. One trade we got over the weekend, one of the few trades we got over the weekend, the John Gibson trade rumors can finally come to an end. He gets sent to the Detroit Red Wings in exchange for Peter Mrazek, a second-round pick in 2027 and a fourth-round pick in 2026. I'm going to say the Anaheim Ducks did not get enough for John Gibson. Give me that 1 through 10.
I'm going to say that's a 9. Just if you look at how barren the goaltending market is right now, Joel Hofer, of course, as well, re-signing when he was a potential offer sheet candidate. You have Jake Allen out on the market, but John Gibson, one of the few guys available potentially that I think has still starter ability. And I think there's still enough of a demand for him that the price should have been higher, I think, on that trade. And John Gibson, yes, he's sort of been in obscurity with Anaheim for the last half decade, but this year was a big bounce back year for him. If you look at goals saved above expected per 60 minutes, he was top 5 in the NHL. So I don't love the return.
Yeah, I mean, we had heard like last week, Franken mentioned like, hey, the Anaheim was maybe looking to get in 2 premium assets. I think he brought up 2 first-round picks at one point. This is also just a great reminder, and I made this point this morning on the DFO rundown with Gregor. the goalies never go for as much as you think they will. I mean, the Ryan Miller trade a decade plus ago was maybe the one outlier, but I even think about Jacob Markstrom, who got traded with, 2 more years on his deal, and Calgary had to keep $2 million of that contract. He got a first round pick and Kevin Ball, and again, a lot, but that was a premier goalie with salary retained for a number of seasons. It felt like Calgary or New Jersey was almost paying more for the retention than the goalie. I think it's a good reminder going forward that when you go in the goalie trade market, it's never going to be the multiple premier pieces. That's never been how the market plays out.
Yeah, I think the weird paradox is you like to say goaltending is the most important position in the league, but also it's strangely easy to find good goaltenders because when there's only 32 starting spots, like the 35th best goalie in the world is still elite, right? So every year you have goalies coming in relatively cheap that take over and have great years. Look at Logan Thompson, Anthony Stolarz. Neither guy was a starter on his own team the previous year. They were two of the best goalies in the league this past season.
It was a weekend that had more extensions than trades. So let's get into a few of those. We can start with the big ticket, and that is Sam Bennett, who is going back to the Florida Panthers. It is an 8-year deal with an $8 million AAV. And listen, coming off of his unbelievable playoffs where he obviously captured the Conn Smythe, I think a lot of people were thinking, $9-10 million for Sam Bennett on the open market. The 8th year is definitely a factor here because that brings up the total amount of dollars Sam Bennett's getting and what will, in all likelihood be the final contract he signs in the NHL. I would throw my hand and go, this is a 51-point player in the regular season last year. That was a career year for Sam Bennett as well. Could he be a 60-point guy going forward? Yeah, maybe. I don't think 8x8's a discount here, though, Matt. I'm not doing the state income tax year thing with him because he's still got a ton of money for a guy who had a great playoff run, and I don't want to take anything away from him on that. But, again, this is a lot of money for Sam Bennett.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, the career high is 51 points, and he does have a checkered history of being fairly injury prone and his style of play. I always use examples like Wayne Simmons, David Backes. There are players like that hit a wall and they suddenly just decline rapidly in their early 30s. So I think halfway through this deal, it's not going to look great. But I think in the context of the Panthers, they don't care. They know he's going to help them win next year. The year after, they're squarely in their contention window. And the price he got, you have to factor in a couple things. You have to factor in the demand. That's what's going to set the price for the player. It was going to be very high on the open market. It was going to be well north of 8. You also have to factor in the rising cap. I'm sure we're going to talk about it multiple times today on the show, but you have to put it through the lens of not $88 million, 95.5, 104, 113. 8 million, even before you talk about tax, it doesn't look like as much in 3 years because the cap is jumping up so much. 3 years from now, the cap is going to be 28% higher than it is right now.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And listen, we don't have enough time in a 30-minute show to get through all of them, but there was Kevin Ball, Dante Fabro, Nick Hague traded from Vegas to Nashville. He's got a big extension as well. The one that really jumped out to me is even with the rising cap, I'm wincing a little bit. I feel like giving Morgan Geekie $5.5 million out of the chute is tough. He had an unbelievable year, 33 goals. He also shot 22%. Morgan Geekie's not shooting 22% every year. If you go back before this season, he had played in 256 career games and only had 39 goals in those 256. Sure, maybe by the middle part of this, even if he's a third liner, it's not the most egregious thing ever. But I felt like they were the Bruins, that is, are taking a big risk on Geekie being able to be a consistent 20-goal guy when I'm not sure if he's there.
Yeah, I think you're right. And yes, a lot of people want to compare it to Matthew Knies, who scored 4 fewer goals than Morgan Geekie this year and gets more than $2 million more a year. But if you're looking at ceiling, Knies' trajectory has been steady. Geekie, to me, it feels more like, I don't want to be overly reductive, but it's like the grinder that had the best year of his career. And I think the way Morgan Geekie was perceived even 6 months ago, not even a year ago, but he got hot down the stretch as well. Like you said, the shooting percentage not sustainable. So I do think he got a nice payout for what's probably going to go down as a career year. At the same time, if you do, again, I'm going to say this a lot of times this summer, if you filter it through the rising cap, it's not going to look so bad in a couple of years. $5.5 million when the cap is 113, that is bottom six money. That's like third line money, right? So I don't think you're going to get killed on this contract, even if it's a bit of an overpay.
you talking about him getting hot down the stretch it makes me even angrier about this contract. He scored 11 goals in his final 14 games. That means for the bulk of the season, he was like just a 20. I don't know. That one doesn't make sense to me. We're going to get to our big segment in just a moment here. We're a couple minutes behind today. Oh, I need to get your take on Knies. You kind of touched on it there. I like this. I feel like Matthew Knies is getting the best of both worlds. Where like 6-year term, you're getting yourself $40 million bucks, so you're kind of in the whole set for life thing now. You got your one big contract, and for the Leafs, you got a little bit of term here and some stability going forward, and you didn't have to like. There's a chance 7.75 becomes a value by year 2.
Yeah, I think so. And, offer sheet was never a concern. Matthew Knies, we asked him about it at the end of the season, and he was pretty clear he was going to sign. Player has to sign. People always forget that about the offer sheet. The player has to be complicit. To me, Matthew Knies, I really see a career trajectory that reminds me a lot of Chris Kreider. Both guys came out of the college route. Both guys are really fast and agile for big guys. Both guys were dropped into the playoffs to start their career. Both are net front monsters. And Chris Kreider peaked as a 50-goal scorer. I do think Knies has the ability to get there. He's that talented. Maybe once in his career, but I'm saying that might be the peak. And I think this is great value. If you factor in, again, a couple years from now, $113 million, it's the equivalent of if he was making $6 million right now, right? So I think the value is absolutely fair. And he's just a unicorn of a player, right? There aren't that many of those power forwards in the NHL.
Before we get to our big guest and Matt Barnaby today, let's talk a little bit about Mitch Marner. You were talking about it off the hop. Rumors flying all over the place this weekend about a potential sign and trade between the Leafs and Vegas that would allow Vegas to get Marner in on an 8th year, maybe knock down the AAV, whatever that ends up being. But then there's all the talk about, well, does Toronto have a tampering case? And could they be using this against the Golden Knights? I'm having a hard time figuring this whole thing out. It seems like a bit of a mess, but the idea that Toronto would be open to doing this if it means they get an asset back, like, I don't think Toronto should be helping Mitch Marner and the Golden Knights if they're getting back a 5th-round pick to trade away his rights or do a sign and trade. But if you could get someone like a Nicholas Waugh, which is one of the rumored pieces, Matt, then yeah, you do it. You swallow your pride and say, sure, is this resulting in Mitch Marner getting more money or Vegas getting a better deal? I guess, but they're out west. If we can get a good, solid roster player, like, you should do it if you're Toronto.
Yeah, especially if it's Nicholas Waugh, or ideally it would be William Karlsson, but I haven't heard anything to suggest that it's Wild Bill. But with the center market just looking so barren, like John Tavares, they were hoping he was going to be the 3rd-line center, but now you kind of have no choice but to make him your 2nd-line center going forward because there just isn't much out there. So hopefully you can get a really good quality 3rd-line center, Nicholas Waugh. And if that's juxtaposed with losing Marner for nothing, then yes, I think that's a bit of a coup for the Leafs. It'll be interesting to see what happens with this tampering scandal. If Marner goes to market July 1st and then signs with Vegas, it's going to be messy. But at the same time, think about how often a team is trying to negotiate a sign and trade and how often it doesn't work out before the draft. Like, you'd have to go back and look at a million other times that this happened. So it's going to be a hard thing to prove.
Yeah, and there's that too. I mean, the fact it's even getting out now, I people are like, oh, the Leafs are leaking this, and I'm like, well, no. If Vegas is sitting there being like, oh, you're making up a tampering thing to try force us to do a deal, then like that makes it even messier. Like, it doesn't benefit either side, but I mean, we'll see. I guess the clock is kind of on now because you have less than a day if you're going to try see this thing through and have it come to fruition. But Marner, for now, stays at the top of our free agent board, which is a nice tie-in to our big segment for the day. It is the All 32, and it's brought to you by Budweiser. Budweiser is encouraging buds to make time for hockey, not excuses. Every goal, every win is better enjoyed with your buds. So phone a bud, ping a bud, and call out their excuses for bailing on hockey. When it's hockey time, it's go time with Budweiser. Pleasure to be joined by Matt Barnaby. He was a part of our daily face-off trade deadline special, and he's making a return tomorrow for our 3-hour free agent show. It all begins at 11 a.m. Eastern right here on the Daily Face-Off YouTube. Matt, appreciate you popping on, and let's just keep the Marner conversation going a little bit here. I would imagine we're talking about him a lot tomorrow, but let's walk down the path of he becomes a Vegas Golden Knight. How much better does he make that team?
He makes them a lot better. Listen, Mitch Marner is a phenomenal facilitator of the puck. He makes players around him better. He's great on the power play. You're getting a 100-point guy, and this guy's point totals are not going to go down. He's an elite player that plays with elite players and makes them even better. So this would be a great get, and all signs. Again, I'm not the insider. We have a bunch that we're listening to. Everything that Matt said before I came on. Um, he's probably going to be a Vegas Golden Knight. It's just what path does he become a Golden Knight? That's the real question.
And Matt, if Marner does become a Golden Knight, then by default, the top winger on the market is going to be Brad Marchand. Of course, he could end up staying with the Florida Panthers. They find something team friendly that works, and he's still doing his Dairy Queen stuff down there. But if he does move on, who do you think is the ideal landing spot? I know the Leafs have been mentioned possibly paying up 4x9, but what do you think, and what do you hear out there?
Yeah, I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire, and obviously they'd love to get a Brad Marchand in there. I just don't see him signing in Toronto because of everything that's went on in Boston over the years. Now, if you overpay him, if you're going to give him 3 million more a year and term than any other team, well, that's something that you have to do as a player. You only have a certain amount of time, and he's made a lot of money, but this like he's always taking a friendly number for the team that he's playing on. I think if he gets to July 1st tomorrow, I don't think he signs in Florida. And I've been steadfast that he will stay a Florida Panther because they just seem to be having so much fun. They're cup champs, and I think they really want to keep that band together as much as they can. And I think just signaling, you look at Sam Bennett getting 8 million, and exactly what you said. If someone was going to pay him $10 million, I think you really regret that number. But with the cap going up in the next 3 years, where it is, 8 million is not going to seem like that much money for a Conn Smythe winner and a guy that can score you 25. He's never going to be that 40 goal guy, but he's paid almost like Claude Lemieux was in the playoffs. So Brad Marchand, I think if he goes to market, listen, if Toronto's going to offer him that kind of money, he will become a Toronto Maple Leaf. I just hope he gets it done because I want to see him stay in Florida. I want to see the celebrations. I want a three-peat.
Yeah, it
I
has
just
been
want to
fun to
jump
watch.
in
I get
quickly.
legitimate FOMO. They just seem like they're having the time of their lives out there. Matt, I wanted to ask you as well about the Edmonton Oilers. And they weren't actually doing a whole lot over the weekend, but I feel like they indirectly had a bad weekend because John Gibson's off the board. Joel Hofer resigns as well. The goalie market is really drying up, and I can't imagine they can go into next year with the same duo. So what do you do if you're the Oilers right now? Do you find a way to take a run at Jake Allen, even though I know the cap is tight because you have to worry about Bouchard and McDavid's next deal as well?
I've been working on my notes for tomorrow because it's going to be a long day and a lot of surprises. And Edmonton goalie question mark. So we're on the same page there. John Gibson was by far the best available goalie out there. And we talked about them at the trade deadline not making the deal, and it came back to haunt them. They have John Gibson. I think they win the Stanley Cup. Bobrovsky steals a couple games. Skinner, Pickard together as a team, just not good enough. We've seen that two years in a row. So, uh, yeah, I think Jake Allen's the next available guy. There's nothing on the free agent market you're going after. I mean, there's absolutely no one that makes you a better team in net on the free agent market. So it's going to be through trade, whether it's tomorrow or they start the year and they address it during the year or come trade deadline when someone comes available. That could be something to pay attention to. But yeah, process of elimination and addition by subtraction, whichever way you want to put it, they did not become a better team yet. And we'll see what they do tomorrow.
Well, and the interesting thing too, like, and again, I would imagine Jake Allen, we have an answer on him pretty quick tomorrow into our free agent show. But if he sits there and goes, "Hey, Philly's offering me $5 million a year because they have the cap space," there might be a world where Edmonton goes, "Okay, like we can't match that because of everything else we have to do." And then at that point, like, are you bringing in, as you said, like Anton Forsberg might be the next best guy on the free agent market? Like maybe there is something to, if you're the Oilers, you just wait until the deadline and go, you know what, we're not going to hamstring ourselves with a bad free agent contract. They know Skinner and Pickard can get them to the playoffs. Like that's not the concern. So
Yeah.
maybe you're right, man. Maybe waiting till the deadline. Like tomorrow, there are more mistakes made than good deals. We need to remember that.
Oh yeah. Tomorrow we said I want my money. And you hold teams under a gun. Like if you're a restricted free agent these days, it wasn't that case essentially when I was a player because we didn't see the offer sheets. The fear of offer sheets because of Doug Armstrong and the St. Louis Blues last year and the years that Brober and Dylan Holloway had under those numbers. That's why we're seeing these signings. That's why we're seeing Geeky. That's why we're seeing all these guys get signed to a little bit more money because because of pure fear, because they know there's a lot of teams with cap space that need to spend it or want to spend it, and they'll overpay a little bit going into the next 3 years. And we're going to say that over and over and over again, because these teams, there's a lot of teams that need to get better. They want to make the playoffs. Not everyone's challenging for a Stanley Cup. Some are just trying to get to the playoffs for their fan bases. You could take Buffalo, you could take Columbus, you could take Montreal. Like, you could take these teams that want to take that next step. They're not ready to compete for a Stanley Cup, but that's why we see that money. And tomorrow, like you said, if someone comes and offers Jake Allen 5x5, Edmonton can't do that. They can't do that without pushing some money out right away. And we know that they've cleared some space, and Matt would know further if there's other deals that they have planned with other players to clear more space. But Jake Allen right now, and this is life. I don't care if it's just hockey. Life is about leverage. If we're negotiating with a network, if we're a player's negotiating with a team, if you're just an accountant going to a different firm, if you hold the leverage, you make more money. If you don't, you don't. If you're a good goaltender right now, you hold all the leverage.
Let me wrap up, Pat. Maybe we could flash up even the top 10 free agents for tomorrow. We kind of said it, and yeah, you're right. Like, robbing them blind, but like, out of these top 10, is there one name on this list who's your biggest like buyer beware that you're going, man, he might get a lot of money and the team that signed him might regret it sooner rather than later?
I don't know. They're all pretty good players. If I had to point to one, maybe Provorov, but I still love it. He's just a great skater. He does a lot of things well. I think all players on that list are really good players. I'm really curious to see where Ehlers ends up. Listen, just listening to everyone talk about it, looks like Carolina, they want to do something to get them to that next level. Brock Besser is a hell of a player. Michael Granlund might be the only guy on the list that could have a little. I think we have recency bias, and he was amazing in the playoffs for Dallas. But he could be a guy that maybe recency bias doesn't live up to what he's going to provide in the next 4 or 5 years.
Matt's going to be part of our free agent special tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern, a 3-hour show. Matt, myself, Carter Hutton, Matt Larkin will be there. Jeff Merritt, Colby Cohen, Johnny Lazarus, and Hart Levine from Puckpedia. Going to be a loaded show, so you won't want to miss it. Matt, rest up. Big show tomorrow.
Cheers, boys. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.
Meet the first of its kind. The Ninja Crispy Portable Cooking System. The power of a full-sized air fryer in the palm of your hand. So you can cook big or small batches. Just prep it, crisp it, serve it, and store it all in one.
The Ninja Crispy 4-in-1 portable glass air fryer is thermal shock resistant and can go from frozen to crispy in minutes. And with the Crispy Power Pod, you get the power of a full-sized air fryer in the palm of your hands. Max crisp, bake, air fry, and re-crisp with the Ninja Crispy. You can prep, cook, and store anything from crispy favorites to one-dish meals. Visit their website at the link in our description or check out ninjakitchen.ca. Moving along to our daily face-off inbox question. We got one in from J-Rock, who wants to know our thoughts on Glenn Gulletson potentially being the guy in Dallas. Matt, he was their head coach 12, 13 years ago. Very rare you see a guy go back for a second tour of duty with a franchise when the first one didn't even feature a playoff appearance.
Yeah, it's true. It's almost like Dallas is treating the slate as clean because Gulletson has learned so much working as an assistant since then. And I think that's fair. I always think of examples like Mike Sullivan and Bruce Cassidy, even though they didn't go to the same organization. But those are two guys that got a shot pretty early in their career, maybe before they were ready. And then they accumulated a lot of experience, whether it was in the AHL or working as assistant coaches. And by the time they got their next shot, they were pretty seasoned, pretty respected. So I feel like this could be Glenn Gulletson's version of the Bruce Cassidy, Mike Sullivan redemption tour.
Yeah, that's fair. Our daily bets are brought to you by Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Let's take an early look at the Stanley Cup odds for next year because I want to ask you a question about them, Matt. There's a bunch of teams lower down, obviously, who are going to be spending big tomorrow and really trying to improve their roster. And maybe we have to call this one the Nashville Predators, cautious offseason award. But is there one team that you think is really going to boost how we view them as a cup contender in the next 24 hours?
Yes, I've been saying the Carolina Hurricanes for about a month now. We did our offensively early Stanley Cup picks a couple weeks ago on Daily Faceoff. I said Carolina because this is a team, they have quite a bit of cap space to make a splash. Last I looked, it was like $26 million. But B, they're not losing a lot in terms of who is part of the offseason exodus? Okay, it's going to be Dmitry Orlov, maybe Brent Burns, maybe he retires, or maybe he comes back for something close to league minimum at this point, who knows? But for the most part, if you look at all their key players in their 20s, whether it's Sebastian Aho or Seth Jarvis, Andrei Svechnikov, now you have Logan Stankoven, they're all there. They're all locked in. And this team is breaking in some good prospects. Scott Morrow, Alexander Nikishin, Jackson Blake, Bradley Nadeau led all rookies in the AHL in goals last year too. So you have a team that's already very good, has some impactful young players ready to help now, and has a lot of cap space. So I think Carolina is set up very well.
Let's wrap up the show with a little bit of garbage time. And listen, there was a lot of the decentralized draft that felt like garbage, but Matthew Schaefer at first overall, I felt like was an awesome moment. And then one of the last moments of the draft is Bill Daly brought one of the Kings fans on day 2 who had managed to hang around through the whole day. He brought him up on stage, and this Kings fan did not disappoint. Let's take a listen.
I mean, that's pretty good for the audience right now. All right.
You know what you're looking at?
Yeah, that's one right there, right?
All right, yep. So with the 24th
yes.
select, go ahead.
All right. With the 24th pick of the 7th round of the 2025 NHL Draft, the Los Angeles Kings select defenseman Will Sharp from the Kelowna Western Hockey League.
Well, how about Matt, his swagger going up on stage, and then when Bill's like, all right, and he goes like, yeah, I know. And it's like, oh yeah, Bill, season 1 here, don't you know? That was great. I loved every second of that kid.
Oh man, me too. He almost like nudged Bill Daly aside. That kid, what are the Gen Zs called? Riz. That kid had some Riz.
Yeah.
And
He's got aura.
I feel like A, that kid's got star power. Like they could bring that kid back. Or B, this could birth a new tradition where they do it every year. They have a fan read the final pick.
I like that one as well. Yeah, or maybe like the final pick for whoever the host city is gets read by just like, you know what, and that guy, section 230, come on, you can read the last pick. But yeah, he went up there with some swagger. Even when he did the Go Kings Go, and he goes, pretty good considering the audience. It's like, yeah, again, it was dead in there, and it's probably why you could point to someone in the crowd and be like, come on up and make the pick. But full credit to Bill Daly as well for having a little bit of fun with it. And speaking of fun, again, 3-hour free agent special tomorrow. Matt Larkin's given us our signing grades. Hart Levine is going to be in our cap corner, and we have a couple of great panels, not just myself, Matt Barnaby, Carter Hutton, but Jeff Merrick with Colby Cohen and Johnny Lazarus. Going to be a loaded up one. In the meantime, dailyfaceoff.com for all your pre-free agency coverage, because tomorrow is going to be a silly one. That is a wrap on a Monday edition of Daily Faceoff Live. Appreciate everybody in the YouTube. We'll see you all again tomorrow, not noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Eastern, special time. Don't forget, we'll chat on July 1.